What up, folks? Once again, it's your boy Tim. As you can see, this video is titled, I Don't Do Airport Trips in Ride Sharing. Now, this is another follow-up. Why would I suggest not doing airport trips when a lot of rideshare drivers think that that is the ideal place to go to pick up passengers? Well, I'm going to give you reasons why it can be a detriment to your earnings. But before I do, go ahead and click the subscribe. Hit the bell notification so you know when we're dropping these videos. And as always, any comments, I respond to them in kind. Airport trips are troublesome for the simple fact that there's a lot of unknowns, which is why I avoid them. The number one cost in this business is fuel. So anytime your vehicle is moving, you want to have someone in it. And with airport trips, airports tend to serve a large swath of geographical area that surround them. So if you go to an airport and say Dallas, it's going to cover Dallas, it's going to cover Fort Worth, it's going to cover a hell of a lot of suburbs and surrounding geographical area. And when you take someone away from DFW to one of those towns, if you come back without anyone in your vehicle, that cost is on you. And when it comes to airport trips, this is very likely to happen. Hence why I'm suggesting to avoid them altogether. I'm going to put up on the screen, here's a map of BWI, Boston Washington International Airport. As you can see, this airport is in between both the District of Columbia and the city of Baltimore. It serves both of these metropolitan areas, but it is closer to Baltimore. So if you pick up a trip at this airport and you go over to Washington, say a town like Fairfax, but your home is in Baltimore, what are the chances that you're going to end up driving back from Fairfax halfway to Baltimore with no one in the vehicle? All of that is on you. Anytime you pick up a trip, the goal is to drive as few miles as possible before the next trip. And you want to do your entire day like that. So driving 20, 30, 40 miles away from the area that is your home area to drop someone off and having to come back empty is an additional loss. And as you know, in ridesharing, we don't make a hell of a lot of money anyway. Here's another issue. Here's another town, rather. I mentioned Dallas. Here you go. Here's DFW. Here's a map of Dallas-Fort Worth. Once again, the airport is in between the metropolitan area of Dallas and Fort Worth. Once again, this airport is closer to Dallas. So if you are sitting at DFW and you pick up a passenger that wants to go to Fort Worth, which is a smaller metropolitan area than Dallas, if you live in Dallas and you take a passenger to Fort Worth, are you certain someone's going to want to come back to Dallas when you drop them off? If not, that trip back is on you. And it could be in traffic. It could take a half hour, an hour. These are major metropolitan areas. So driving 5 miles doesn't take 5 minutes. It may take you 20 minutes. So you do not want to go on endeavors that may lead you to driving for several miles, if not an hour or so, with no one in the vehicle. So when I say avoid airports, I'm not talking about an airport like, say, McCarran out in Las Vegas. Now, that's an airport I might be more in favor of dealing with because it is very close to the action, meaning the strip. If you pick up someone at Las Vegas airport, chances are highly likely they're going on that strip, which is essentially down the block. And there's no doubt you're going to find folks on the strip that want to go back to the airport. So now you have a back and forth where you're not driving a long distance with no one in your car. So Las Vegas is a great place to go to the airport. But towns that have sister cities, as I mentioned, Baltimore and Washington, or Dallas and Fort Worth, towns like that where they refer to them as sister cities that share the same airport, can be disastrous in cases like this. Raleigh-Durham is another one. Or if you go to the airport in Gary, Indiana for Chicago. These sister cities is where you can get stuck somewhere driving 30, 40, 50 miles back to pick someone up because airports serve a large geographical area. It's not uncommon for somebody to drive 30, 40, 50 miles into the airport to catch a flight. When they come home, they got to go 30, 40, 50 miles back to their house. You do not want to take them there. I avoid airports at all costs. I'd rather bounce around in the metropolitan area, picking up a 5 or 10 mile trip, driving a mile or two to pick up the next one and doing the same thing over and over again. That way, my empty mileage is way, way shorter than mileage that I have when folks are in the vehicle. Loaded miles versus deadhead miles. You want your deadhead miles to be a minimum. Essentially, you really want to drop someone off, park the damn car, and wait till the next trip come in. You don't want to really be driving empty at all. Picking up folks from airports increase that significantly, increases the chances of that happening significantly, particularly in towns with sister cities. Quad cities over in Iowa and Illinois is another example where there's 4 different towns that share the Eastern Iowa airport. It's not just necessarily sister cities either. It could be, here's a map of the airport in Milwaukee, if I can remember the name of it. This is the airport in Milwaukee. As you can see, it is on the far southern end of Milwaukee County. Everyone in Milwaukee County, this airport serves them. So you damn near got to drive out of town to get to this airport. So you're already driving several miles out there to get to the airport. Hopefully someone's in your car when you go out there. But when you pick up someone, are they going back where you came from in Milwaukee? Are they going to somewhere near Racine County or Kenosha County? Because if you get down in those areas, you're not going to get a driver back. If you live in Milwaukee and you're at the airport and you pick someone up and they want to go to Racine County, which is only a few miles south, you're not going to get anybody out of Racine coming back north to Milwaukee. It's just not going to happen. If you are lucky, if you are extremely lucky, you may get someone out of Racine or these areas to go back to the airport, but the trip from the airport, chances are you're deadheading. All of this goes into my original statement of avoiding the airports, but there are other reasons. In addition to it being on the edge of the city, meaning you got to generally drive several miles to get to it, it's also an area where there's a hell of a lot of traffic. I'd rather deal with neighborhoods. You don't want to get in all of that ridiculous amounts of traffic if you don't have to, just sitting there idling, burning gas once again, and wasting time. The next issue is the police. When you're picking up people at the airport, particularly these major urban airports, whereas now after the 9/11 terror, the police are shooing you on. They don't want you to stop any damn where. So if you don't spot that passenger right away, the police are going to make you oftentimes do rounds around the airport because you can't stop and wait at arrivals. You got to keep driving around, or you need to get on the phone and call that person and make sure you know that they're going to be out there. It's just too much of a hassle. Whereas I pick someone up at a business or at their home, I can sit out in front of that house for 20 minutes waiting for them to come out. Or sit out, you can sit somewhere without worrying about the police threatening to give you a damn ticket for not moving along, which is what they are now doing in a lot of urban airports. Now, if you live in a small town airport, maybe they're not doing this, but certainly DFWs in Baltimore and all these bigger airports that I mentioned, they're not going to let you sit for long. They're just not going to let you sit there and wait. Also, they shoo you off to these specific areas of the airport where you got to wait and all of that. Now, in the taxi game, driving to airports was a huge windfall. Because when you're making $2.60, $3 a mile and things like that the taxis charge, you don't mind driving somebody 60, 70 miles and coming back empty. The base fare has enough money in it so that if you got to drive back empty, you're still profiting. I mean, if you drive 100 miles at $3.60 a mile, that's $360. But when you look at the Uber-based pricing, 100 miles at, say, 70 cents a mile is $70. And that means you got to drive that 100 miles back. $70 to drive 100 miles. 100 miles is about an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. There's no profit in that. You're gonna get $70 to drive for 2 hours, and then you got to drive back. So you're really driving 200 miles. How much gas is that? By the time you figure it out, it's just not worth the wear and tear on your car and things like that. But in the taxi business, where all of the fares were $2 to $3 a mile, the longer the passenger wanted to go, the happier you were. You didn't give a shit about deadheading back empty because, like I said, the price of the base fare was so high, it was worth it. Plus, you got other things, like you pick up somebody from an airport. Maybe they got a business partner with them, or maybe it's a family. You get to charge $1 surcharge or whatever it is per additional adult. In the ride-sharing business, that doesn't happen. They can put 5 adults in your car, and you don't get an extra cent for any of them. So a lot of the perks of going to airports, including surcharges, I believe a lot of towns in the taxi business, there was an airport surcharge. That may or may not happen now if the legislation or the government of some of these towns has pushed Uber to allow that. But for the most part, most towns, there's no sort of preferential treatment or extra money for Uber or Lyft drivers that go out to the airport. It's no different than picking somebody up in town and taking them to another spot in town. So there's no added benefit to going out there. So I never could understand why drivers go and hover around airports. Like I said, traffic, the wait, and then having police there, which increases the likelihood of them writing tickets on your vehicle and things like that. It just isn't worth the hassle. So you guys let me know in the comments. Once again, what area are you in? If you find airport trips to be lucrative and that's what you prefer, state your reasons why. Let me know. I want to be, if I stand corrected, I'm fine conceding, but let me know why you prefer airport trips over trips in town. I just don't see it unless you're getting more tips from the airports. And that really is market specific. Vegas, I brought up Vegas earlier. Everybody goes to Vegas in a good mood. So you're going to get more tips. And then there's obviously some people, not a lot, never been me, but there are some people who leave their winning money. I think I've been to Vegas maybe 20 times. Maybe once or twice I was a winner. So don't count me in that group. But if you leave there winning money, tipping people is something that you may not have a problem doing. But like I said, in Vegas, everybody's happy. So you may receive a lot more tips. But if you're in Chattanooga somewhere, the tipping is not going to happen very much. So let me know in the comments, why the hell would you want to do an airport trip? Or if you agree with what I'm suggesting, that you don't know where people are going or any of that. And that's another issue with this business, is because rideshare and Uber and Lyft are known for hiding where passengers are going. When you drive out to the airport to pick someone up, you don't know where they're going. Like in the DFW example I mentioned, let's say you're on the outskirts, maybe 5 miles from the airport. You get a trip at DFW. When you're driving that 5 miles to DFW, you don't know if that passenger is coming back to Dallas or going to Fort Worth. You don't know any of that until you get to that passenger, which is another reason why I do not do airport trips. Under the worst case scenario, I would encourage you to pull over and try to phone that passenger and ask them, are you coming back to Dallas or are you going to Fort Worth somewhere? And then you can make your decision based on that. What's unfortunate about this is streak bonuses. We all love streak bonuses. The unfortunate issue with streak bonuses, it does not allow you to cancel a trip in the middle of the streak. You essentially got to accept every damn thing they keep sending you. So if you get a bad trip in the middle of a streak bonus, such as what I'm mentioning now, a person wants to go way the hell out of an area, or let's say they just send you a trip that requires you to drive 15, 20 miles to pick somebody up. You don't want that shit. You don't want to drive 20 miles to pick someone up because you know that it is highly unlikely that that passenger is going to ride for 20 miles. You're going to drive 20 miles to pick somebody up that wants to go 2 or 3 miles? That's a complete financial loss. But when you're in the middle of a streak bonus, you got to take that shit to get your streak. I've actually jumped out of streaks because the trip they were trying to send me on was so unprofitable, it wasn't even worth pursuing the streak. But I hate doing that. You got two, you're looking for your third ride to equal the streak. You got 2 under your belt, and then boom, a ride goes off and it's 15 miles away. In my market, ain't nobody riding 15 miles. Everybody's riding 5 miles or less. So I know I'm going to pick up somebody that's going to ride far, far less than the trip I'm driving out to pick them up. So I know this is a loss. And so you don't want to do it. But like I said, that's up to you to make that decision when you're dealing with streak bonuses. But yeah, pull over, call them at the airport. You can find out that way. Or worst case scenario, if you're already at the airport, just like I mentioned in my other videos, and I encourage you to watch my other video about more tips that I give you than what I'm giving you here. It's well over 100,000 views, semi-viral. I'll link it in the description. Watch that video. I give you a laundry list of tips on how to make money in this business. But for airport trips, if you have driven out to the airport and you're hesitant, or now you're on the grounds of the airport and you're wondering, I hope this person is not going way the hell out of the area, pull over a few feet, few hundred feet. Like say you're in arrivals. You can see their airline up ahead. They're arriving on Delta and you're back at Lufthansa or something. Or you're back at Spirit Airlines. Stop. Swipe arrived on the app. At that point on the app, once you swipe arrived, you will be able to see where they are going. If they're going somewhere that you don't want to go to because it's going to cost you a hell of a lot of money to drive back empty, cancel it. Yeah, you've lost the 3 or 4 miles or whatever it cost you to drive out to the airport, but it's better to lose that 3 or 4 miles you drove to the airport than to drive them 40, 50 miles outside of town and have to drive all of that back at your own expense. Folks out here are not tipping, folks. It's not guaranteed. There are plenty of passengers that tip, but there are far more that do not. So don't ever think that driving somebody 15, 20, 30 miles outside of the area is going to make them more likely to tip. There's a whole lot of passengers that don't tip. College kids, Walmart shoppers, single mothers, all that shit. I'm going to do a video based on that so that you can make better choices. There's also some other places I don't like to go as well. I'm going to talk about that because you're going to do work for the passenger and they're not going to tip you. That's a different video. Subscribe to the channel. Click the damn bell so you get the notifications of when I'm on here. Like I said, drop a comment, hit the like button, drop a comment. I respond to any and all comments. Been driving since 2014, so I do have a little bit of experience here. Catch you later. It's your boy Tim. I'm out.